Over the past year, we've seen many headlines about the tensions and conflicts that are spilling over into the workplace. As this kind of sample that you see on the screen here demonstrates, the sources of these conflicts are quite varied, ranging from political differences to remote work preferences, support for the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as vaccine mandates being just a few examples. A recent article by Anna Shields that appeared in Forbes noted that workplace mediators have noticed significant changes in the nature of conflict at work during the course of the pandemic. One of those differences is that over the past 18 months, there's really been an uptick in conflict between employees and their employing organizations. And here we see in these headlines many different examples of how that's manifested. The tech firm Basecamp, for example, attracted quite a few headlines over the summer when about a third of its 60 employees decided to exit the organization after their CEO announced in a blog post that employees would no longer be able to share their societal and political discussions at work. And as you can see by the headline right below that one, certainly many people thought that was a flawed strategy and one that other organizations should maybe avoid in the future. Similarly, we saw earlier this year that Apple employees pushing back after CEO Tim Cook announced plans to have employees return to the office for at least 3 days a week starting in September. The pushback was not only about employees wanting more flexibility, but also really more about the fact that they felt ignored. They felt like their voices were not heard and that these decisions were being made top down without really the input and opinions and views of the broader employee base being taken into consideration. And finally, we've seen a lot of employee-employer conflicts emerge in the context of the Black Lives Matter movement. Some companies, for example, have banned employees from wearing buttons and other attire showing support for the movement, which has sparked pushback from employees, leading some organizations like Starbucks to reverse course, and others like Kroger brands to face NLRB challenges here going forward. The rise in employee-employer conflict has been attributed to a number of different factors, but one of those is really kind of a shift in employee priorities during the pandemic. People over the past 18 months have really reflected or haven't had an opportunity to reflect on what they want from work, what they want from their employers, and how they want to see their own values and opinions reflected in the places in which they work, and may, going forward, not be as willing as they were in the past to kind of sacrifice their own needs and values. Certainly, the record staffing shortages that we're seeing now have also shifted the leverage to employees to have much more impact or a stronger position in order to stand up for what they want from their employing organizations. In the Forbes article, Shields notes, however, that not all of this conflict is between employees and their employers. It's also occurring within teams, between employees, as well as increasingly between employees and customers. I'm sure that all of you over the past several months have seen many signs like these when you've been out, maybe at restaurants or other stores and locations, reminding us as customers to be patient, to be kind, and to recognize that due to the staffing shortages, things might not be as seamless and quick as they once were. Such reminders might have some demonstrable effect in short-term interactions with service providers. However, these types of reminders may be less effective when we're dealing with employees who are having intensive, ongoing relationships with their coworkers on a day-to-day basis. There's some evidence also that our traditional approaches to managing employee conflict may not be as effective as they could or should be. A recent survey of employees in the UK, for example, found that 83% feel that people in their organizations are not heard fairly or equally. Another recent survey found that when employees discuss a conflict issue with their manager, HR, or their union representative, only 43% report that the problem was resolved. In short, these and other data points have prompted our interest into really digging more into how can companies manage these cultural fault lines at work, and what might be some of the new approaches that we need to address these conflicts as we begin our return to the office.